Amir had never imagined that his life would take such an unexpected turn on what began as an ordinary day. He had been invited to attend the Interstellar Research Exhibition, a rare event where humans and aliens came together to showcase their achievements, discoveries, and technologies. For Amir, a young scientist with a passion for space and biology, it was an exciting opportunity to meet minds from other worlds and learn things that textbooks had only hinted at. He had spent weeks preparing, reading every report he could find about alien cultures and wondering if he might finally witness something truly extraordinary. The exhibition hall was enormous, with tall ceilings that shimmered like the night sky. Holographic displays floated in midair, projecting images of distant planets, unusual life forms, and futuristic inventions. There were humans dressed in formal suits and scientists in lab coats, but among them were aliens of every imaginable form. Some had translucent skin that glowed softly in the dim light, while others had multiple eyes or long flowing limbs. Amir could hardly believe that he was walking among beings he had only ever studied in theories and reports. He wandered from display to display, marveling at the inventions and asking questions to anyone who would answer. He felt both excited and nervous. Interacting with aliens, even in a controlled setting, was intimidating. Their ways of communicating, their gestures, their very presence were so different from what he knew. Still, Amir was determined to learn, to observe, and to make a good impression. As he turned a corner, he almost collided with someone. He froze, his heart pounding. Before him stood a figure so striking that it made him stop breathing for a moment. She was tall, graceful, and unlike any alien he had seen before. Her skin shimmered faintly, reflecting the lights of the exhibition hall like moonlight on water. Her eyes were large, expressive, and seemed to hold a wisdom far beyond her years. Her hair flowed like liquid silk, and her movements were smooth, deliberate, and elegant. Every step she took seemed to command the space around her without any effort. Amir's mind went blank. All he could do was stare, captivated by her beauty. He knew he should apologize for almost bumping into her, but no words came out immediately. The exhibition noises, the hum of machines, the chatter of people, the occasional alien sounds, faded into the background. It was as if the world had paused. He could only think one thing: so beautiful. To his surprise, she slowly turned her gaze toward him. Amir felt a chill run down his spine. Her eyes met his, and it felt like she could see every thought and emotion in his mind. There was curiosity in her expression, a gentle awareness, and something else he could not quite name. She did not speak, but her slow, deliberate glance seemed like an acknowledgement, a recognition of his presence. Amir's voice finally emerged in a whisper, almost against his will. "So beautiful." For a moment, they simply looked at each other. He could see her eyebrows lift slightly, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. Amir's heart raced. He had never felt anything like this before, not in classrooms, not in meetings, not even during his experiments. It was a mixture of awe, nervousness, and an inexplicable connection that made him want to know everything about her. Amir tried to regain his composure. He cleared his throat, shuffled his feet, and attempted a polite introduction. I'm Amir. I study, biology and interstellar life forms," he stammered. The words sounded clumsy, even to his own ears, but she did not seem to mind. Instead, she inclined her head slightly, a graceful motion that conveyed acknowledgement without needing words. He noticed the subtle details about her, the way her hands moved when she adjusted a strand of hair, the soft shimmer of her skin under the exhibition lights, the delicate patterns on her attire that seemed almost like living art. Everything about her was mesmerizing, yet there was an air of gentleness that made her approachable despite her royal presence. Amir realized slowly that she was not just an alien or a figure of legend in the media reports he had studied. She was a person, curious and alive, and she was here, noticing him. Amir decided he needed to say something more meaningful, but his thoughts scattered. What do you say to an alien princess? What words could possibly express the awe he felt? He tried again, more calmly this time. I didn't expect to meet someone like you here. She smiled lightly, a gesture so subtle it might have been missed by anyone else. But Amir saw it, and it made him feel an odd sense of warmth. Her presence was calming, almost magnetic. Around them, the exhibition continued in full swing, but for Amir, it felt like the world had narrowed down to just the two of them. Every movement, every glance seemed amplified in significance. Curiosity sparked within Amir. He wanted to know who she was, what her life was like, what she thought about humans, about the universe, about him. He wanted to ask her questions, but he also feared that speaking too much might break the fragile, silent connection he felt. Instead, he simply watched her as she moved gracefully across the hall, pausing occasionally to observe other exhibits. Every time she glanced in his direction, his heart skipped a beat. The exhibition carried on for hours, but Amir barely noticed. He followed from a distance, watching her interact with others, always maintaining a quiet respect for her space. She was kind, intelligent, and observant, asking questions and listening carefully, showing interest in the human inventions without condescension. Amir admired her for this. Her openness and curiosity mirrored his own passion for learning. As the day wore on, Amir found himself drawn into small, silent interactions, shared glances, fleeting smiles, subtle gestures. Each moment felt monumental, like they were building a bridge across their worlds without needing words.
He knew that meeting her was rare, perhaps a once-in-a-lifetime chance, and he wanted to make it meaningful. Even if he could only admire from afar, he resolved to observe, to learn, and to appreciate her presence. By the time the exhibition ended,
Amir's mind was full of thoughts, emotions, and questions. He had experienced something beyond his expectations, a moment that would stay with him forever. As he left the hall, he could not stop thinking about her, the alien princess who had slowly looked his way, who had made him feel both insignificant and incredibly alive at the same time. The memory of her gaze, her subtle smile, and the simple words he had whispered, "So beautiful," stayed with him, echoing in his mind like the beginning of an extraordinary journey that was yet to unfold. Amir knew one thing for certain. His life had changed in a way he could not yet fully understand. He had glimpsed something extraordinary, and he would never forget the first moment he saw her, the alien princess who, after the exhibition, Amir could not stop thinking about the alien princess. Her beauty, her calm presence, and the way she had looked at him stayed in his mind like a bright light he could not ignore. For days he replayed the moment over and over, wondering if he had imagined some of it. But he knew it had been real. Something about her had drawn him in, and he could not shake the feeling that this was the start of something important. A few days later, Amir was invited to a special interstellar seminar, which was smaller and more private than the exhibition. It was designed to encourage discussions and collaborations between humans and alien representatives. He hoped he might see her again, and to his surprise, she was there. The moment their eyes met, a quiet recognition passed between them. She nodded slightly, and Amir felt a rush of excitement and nervousness at the same time. This time he had a chance to speak with her more closely. He learned her name, Leora, and discovered that she was not only a princess but also deeply interested in human culture and science. Her curiosity was genuine. She asked questions about his work, his life on Earth, and even his simple daily routines. Amir was fascinated by her questions, and he realized that despite being royalty, she approached learning with the same enthusiasm he did. Her interest in him was subtle but real, and it made him feel respected rather than intimidated. However, he quickly noticed the differences between their worlds. Simple gestures he took for granted were unfamiliar to her. When he offered a handshake, she hesitated and then performed a graceful bow instead. When he complimented her scientific knowledge, she smiled, but in a way that seemed both amused and thoughtful, as if she was processing the human way of expressing praise. Amir realized that if he wanted to understand her, he would need patience, careful attention, and a willingness to learn her customs as well. Despite the cultural divide, their connection grew stronger. They found ways to communicate beyond words, through gestures, shared observations, and even small drawings of ideas. Amir began to feel that Leora understood him in a way few humans ever had. She listened without judgment and responded thoughtfully, which encouraged him to speak openly about his research, his dreams, and even his fears. In return, he listened to her talk about her life, her responsibilities as a princess, and the pressure she felt to uphold her family's reputation while exploring her own interests. One afternoon, they walked together in the exhibition garden, a space designed to mimic natural environments from multiple planets. Birds that glowed faintly in the dark flew overhead, and streams of water reflected the colors of distant stars. Amir tried to explain how human nature studies worked, how humans observed the world, and how they tried to understand the universe. Leora listened carefully, nodding, and occasionally asking questions that revealed a deep understanding. Amir realized that intelligence and curiosity were universal, even across worlds. Yet despite their growing friendship, Amir could not ignore the challenges. He was a human, ordinary in many ways, while Leora was royalty, trained to make decisions that affected her entire people. He wondered if anyone could ever accept a bond between them. Even among her own advisors, he imagined, a human might be considered unworthy. And among his own colleagues, some might see him as foolish for aspiring to connect with someone so far beyond his world. But each time he saw her smile, each time she showed interest in his thoughts, those doubts faded for a moment. He realized that curiosity, kindness, and genuine connection mattered more than rules or titles. Their conversations became more personal. Amir shared stories of his childhood, the small town where he grew up, and the nights he spent gazing at the stars, imagining what life was like on other planets. Leora, in turn, shared stories of her childhood palace, the lessons she learned about leadership, and the quiet moments she cherished when no one else was watching. Amir found himself smiling more than usual, feeling an ease he had never known around anyone. There was a trust forming, a silent understanding that transcended words and species alike. One evening, as the seminar concluded and the halls began to empty, Amir and Leora found themselves sitting together in a quiet corner. The room was dimly lit and the soft hum of alien machines filled the background. They did not speak at first, simply enjoying the calm presence of each other. Amir realized that connection did not always need words. The fact that they could sit together comfortably, without pressure or expectation, was meaningful. He understood that the bond they were forming was rare, fragile, and beautiful. Leora looked at him and asked softly, "Do humans always feel so hesitant when they meet someone new?" Amir chuckled lightly, realizing that she had noticed his nervousness from the very beginning. "Not always," he said, "but sometimes when someone is different or remarkable, it's hard to find the right words." She nodded thoughtfully, her gaze kind and understanding. Amir felt a sense of relief. Here was someone who could see him clearly without judgment and accept him as he was. Over the next few weeks, Amir continued to meet Leora whenever he could. They exchanged ideas, shared small discoveries, and even began collaborating on a minor project that combined human and alien scientific methods. Through these interactions, Amir learned patience, humility, and the importance of understanding perspectives beyond his own. Leora learned to appreciate human creativity, resilience, and the simple joy of discovering something new. Together, they began to bridge the cultural divide, learning that respect and curiosity could overcome barriers that once seemed impossible. Despite the growing connection, Amir could not ignore the reality that the world outside their private meetings was not always welcoming. Some humans viewed Leora as untouchable, and some aliens believed humans could never be equals. He sometimes felt the weight of expectations pressing down on both of them. But instead of letting it discourage him, Amir used it as motivation. He wanted to prove, through his actions and his integrity, that their bond was meaningful, respectful, and possible. By the end of this period, Amir realized something profound. His admiration for Leora had grown into something deeper. It was not just her beauty that captivated him, but her mind, her kindness, her curiosity, and the way she made him feel both inspired and understood. For the first time in his life, he experienced a connection that transcended differences, a bond built on respect, fascination, and mutual recognition. And though he knew challenges lay ahead, he was determined to nurture this connection no matter how difficult the path might be. As he left the seminar hall one evening, Amir looked back at Leora standing among a group of aliens, discussing something with quiet authority. She caught his glance and smiled ever so slightly, and in that moment Amir understood something he had known deep down all along. This was only the beginning. The human and the alien princess had started a journey together, one filled with wonder, discovery, and the quiet hope that two very different worlds could find harmony in their curiosity and respect for each other. As Amir and Leora spent more time together, their bond grew stronger, but the reality of their worlds began to press down on them. At first it was subtle, a quiet hesitation in conversations, a glance of disapproval from a human colleague, a whispered comment among her advisors. Amir noticed the difference immediately. The more people learned of their connection, the more judgmental whispers followed. Some humans thought he was overstepping, attempting something impossible. Some aliens questioned why their princess would take interest in a human, someone so different and ordinary in their eyes. The tension came to a head during a public event organized to showcase joint human-alien scientific projects. Amir and Leora had been working on a demonstration together, a small experiment combining alien energy patterns with human biological models. It was a groundbreaking collaboration, but as soon as the audience noticed their partnership, some reactions were cold and skeptical. A few alien representatives murmured among themselves, and a couple of human scientists exchanged looks that clearly suggested disapproval. Amir felt his chest tighten. He had known this might happen, but he had hoped their work would speak for itself. Leora, however, seemed unfazed by the whispers. She moved gracefully, presenting their project with poise and clarity, and her confidence made Amir feel braver. Still, he could not ignore the glances, the doubt, and the judgment. He felt exposed, like someone under a microscope, observed not just for his work but for who he was. After the demonstration, Amir and Leora found a quiet place to talk. The noise of the event faded behind them, leaving only their shared space. Amir struggled to find words, unsure how to express his frustration without sounding weak. "People, they don't understand," he said finally, his voice tight. "They think it shouldn't happen." Leora listened, her expression calm but serious. She understood the pressure better than he did, having spent her entire life balancing expectations and her own desires. "Amir," she said softly, "I know it is difficult. My world has rules and your world has its own. But that does not mean we are wrong for finding each other, for connecting. What matters is that we are honest, respectful, and true to ourselves." Her words reassured him, but Amir knew that respecting themselves was only part of the challenge. They would have to prove their bond in ways that went beyond words. The world outside would not easily accept their connection, and every step forward would require courage. That evening, as they walked together under the stars projected in the exhibition's night simulation garden, Amir made a silent promise to himself. He would not allow fear or judgment to define their relationship. The following weeks brought more subtle challenges. Some colleagues avoided Amir, hesitant to be seen associating with him. Some alien advisors offered polite but pointed warnings to Leora, suggesting that a human could not understand the responsibilities of royalty. Even small gestures like walking together in public or exchanging notes became acts of quiet defiance that drew attention. Amir often felt anxious and frustrated, but Leora remained a steady presence. Her calm demeanor reminded him that they did not need approval to be true to each other, even if society tried to impose limits. One afternoon, Amir faced a particularly difficult moment. While working in the lab, a senior human scientist approached him. "Amir," he said with a mixture of concern and disbelief, "I respect your work, but you need to understand the risks. Associating too closely with her could damage your reputation and even your career. Think carefully before you go further." Amir listened, heart sinking. He understood the warning, but he also knew that stepping back was not an option. Leora was not just a fleeting admiration, she had become someone who mattered deeply to him. Meanwhile, Leora faced her own pressures. Her advisors reminded her daily of her responsibilities, warning that public displays of closeness with a human could be misinterpreted or even considered scandalous. Some even suggested that she focus solely on her royal duties and avoid distractions. Yet in quiet moments with Amir, she felt a freedom she rarely experienced in her structured life. He was curious, respectful, and genuinely interested in who she was as a person, not just as a princess. The contrast between public expectation and private connection created tension that neither could fully escape. There were days when Amir left the lab feeling exhausted, uncertain and anxious about the next judgmental glance. There were nights when Leora doubted herself, wondering if her affection for a human could ever be accepted. But despite the challenges, their bond only strengthened. They learned to communicate with honesty, to support each other, and to find moments of joy even in the midst of criticism. A turning point came during a cultural exchange event, where humans and aliens shared traditions and stories from their worlds. Amir was nervous as he walked beside Leora, aware of the audience watching them closely. When it was their turn to speak, Amir began to share a story from his childhood, a memory of stargazing in his backyard, imagining the worlds beyond Earth. Leora followed with a story of her own, describing the quiet gardens of her palace where she would watch the stars alone, dreaming of adventure and learning. As they spoke, the audience fell silent, captivated by the sincerity and depth of their stories. For a moment it seemed that the walls between worlds could be lowered through shared humanity and curiosity. Amir felt hope rising within him. Perhaps if people could see them not as human and alien, but as two individuals connecting through shared wonder, understanding might follow. Yet even as hope grew, challenges persisted. Outside the events, whispers and cautious glances reminded them that acceptance was not guaranteed. Amir often wondered if their bond would survive in a world that prized rules over connection. Leora, sensing his concern, would take his hand, gently, reminding him through touch that they could face obstacles together. In those moments, Amir felt strength he did not know he possessed. He realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. By the end of this period, Amir and Leora had discovered that love, or even deep connection, was never simple. It demanded patience, resilience, and a commitment to mutual understanding. They knew that judgment and skepticism were part of the journey, but they also recognized that the bond they shared was unique and worth defending. Every glance, every conversation, every shared moment became an act of defiance and affirmation, proof that connection could exist even across the widest divides. Amir often reflected on how far they had come since the first moment he had whispered, "So beautiful," when she had looked his way. That moment had sparked curiosity, but it had grown into respect, admiration, and something deeper. He understood now that the challenges were not obstacles meant to separate them. They were tests of commitment, courage, and the power of human and alien hearts willing to see beyond appearances. As they walked together one evening under the projection of distant galaxies, Amir realized something profound. Their journey had only begun, and yet they had already learned lessons that most never understood in a lifetime. That understanding, patience, and bravery could bridge worlds. The day of the interstellar diplomatic gathering arrived, a grand event attended by humans, aliens, scientists, and leaders from multiple planets. The hall was vast, shining with holographic displays, banners of different worlds, and a crowd buzzing with conversation. Amir and Leora walked together into the center of the hall, aware that every eye was on them. For Amir, it was overwhelming. He felt exposed, as though every glance was a judgment. For Leora, it was familiar. A public stage was part of her life. Yet even she felt the tension of human and alien expectations converging. The main event was a forum to discuss collaboration and alliances across worlds. While the room filled with speeches and presentations, Amir noticed subtle shifts in attention. Whispers traveled across tables, and people leaned closer, curious about the human standing beside the alien princess. He could feel the weight of scrutiny on him. Doubts crept in. Could he really belong in this environment? Could he show the same courage and intelligence as the leaders around him? Then came the moment of truth. One of Leora's advisors stood to address the crowd, indirectly criticizing the human-alien pairing. While collaboration is important, the advisor said, some partnerships may not reflect the values or traditions of our worlds. The words were measured, polite, yet the meaning was clear. Human and alien connections were unexpected, even unacceptable to some. Amir felt his hands clench at his sides. His heart pounded, and he feared that the day's efforts might crumble under the weight of judgment. Leora, sensing his unease, took his hand gently and led him forward. She stepped to the center of the stage and faced the audience, her posture calm, confident, and commanding. Amir's breath caught in his throat. He had never seen anyone move with such authority and elegance. Then, in a voice clear and steady, she addressed the crowd. The human standing beside me has proven to be a thoughtful, intelligent, and respectful collaborator. His contributions are meaningful and his presence here is valued. I see him not as a human, but as a partner, as an equal. A hush fell over the hall. Some attendees exchanged shocked glances. Others whispered in surprise, realizing the courage it took for a princess to speak so openly. Amir's mind raced. He had never felt so seen, so acknowledged, and so proud. Leora's words were not just for the audience. They were for him. They conveyed trust, respect, and recognition in a way no simple gesture ever could. As the event continued, Amir and Leora presented their collaborative project. They demonstrated the fusion of human ingenuity with alien energy patterns, showing the audience that their bond was not only personal, but also productive and innovative. Their teamwork spoke louder than any doubt. Each movement, each explanation, each shared glance reinforced that they were equals. Amir felt a sense of pride he had never known, not only in his work but in the courage to stand beside someone who believed in him. After the presentation, the crowd slowly began to warm to their partnership. Some humans, initially skeptical, began to ask questions about the project. Some aliens, intrigued by the success of the collaboration, showed curiosity rather than judgment. It was a small victory, but it carried the promise of change. Amir realized that recognition did not come all at once. It was built slowly, through honesty, dedication, and the courage to act, despite fear. Later, as the hall emptied and the stars, projected above, flickered softly, Amir and Leora found a quiet balcony. The city below was alive with lights, a mixture of human and alien technology blending together in an intricate dance. They stood side by side, hands brushing, hearts still racing from the intensity of the day. Amir finally spoke, his voice low and sincere. I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think anyone would see me as equal, especially here in front of everyone. Leora smiled gently. Amir, you have always been equal. You just needed the courage to see it for yourself. Today you showed it to the world. And more importantly, you showed it to me. Her words made his chest tighten, a warmth spreading that felt like reassurance and hope all at once. As they watched the city lights, Amir realized something profound. Their bond was no longer private. It had been tested publicly, challenged by doubt and skepticism, and yet it had endured. He understood that the true measure of connection was not in avoiding obstacles but in facing them together. With trust, courage, and honesty, the human and the alien princess had proven that respect and admiration could transcend worlds. By the time they returned indoors, Amir felt a new confidence. The road ahead would still have challenges, but the day had shown him that partnership, real partnership, was possible even across the widest divides. and with Leora beside him, he felt ready to face whatever came next, knowing that they were stronger together. After the diplomatic event, Amir and Leora began to explore ways to continue their collaboration and strengthen their connection in a world that often questioned it. They returned to their shared projects with renewed energy, combining human creativity with alien wisdom to achieve results that impressed even the most skeptical observers. Every experiment, every discovery, became a symbol of their growing bond, a partnership built on respect, trust, and shared curiosity. Amir often reflected on how far they had come since the first moment he had seen her at the exhibition. That single glance had grown into a friendship, which had blossomed into mutual respect, admiration, and eventually, something deeper. Their journey had not been easy, but each challenge had strengthened them. They learned patience, resilience, and the importance of being true to themselves even when others doubted them. As weeks passed, their relationship began to influence the people around them. Humans and aliens alike began to see the value of collaboration beyond appearances. Amir's colleagues started asking him questions about alien technology, and Leora's advisors noticed the creativity and insight he brought to their discussions. The bond between Amir and Leora became more than personal. It became a symbol of what could be achieved when differences were embraced rather than feared. Amir and Leora also found moments of quiet joy away from the pressures of work and diplomacy. They walked under simulated night skies, shared stories about their childhoods, and laughed at small, ordinary things that reminded them of their worlds. These moments reminded them why they valued each other, not only for what they accomplished together, but for the way they made each other feel understood and appreciated. One evening, Amir invited Leora to his lab after hours. The lab was quiet, illuminated by the soft glow of alien energy crystals he had borrowed from the exhibition. They worked side by side, experimenting and observing results, but the atmosphere was relaxed, almost playful. Amir noticed how Leora's eyes lit up when a new observation surprised her, and he felt a thrill seeing her so engaged. In that moment, he realized that admiration went beyond appearances. It was in the way she thought, how she reacted, and the genuine passion she carried for knowledge. Their partnership soon extended beyond scientific exploration. They began organizing workshops and seminars to encourage collaboration between humans and aliens. The program allowed young scientists and students from both worlds to learn from each other, fostering understanding and mutual respect. Amir and Leora took turns mentoring participants, showing that curiosity, patience, and courage could bridge even the widest gaps. They became symbols of hope for others who believed in friendship and collaboration across worlds. Despite their public efforts, Amir and Leora never let go of the personal connection that had begun it all. Small gestures, a hand lightly brushing, another, a shared smile, a quiet word in the lab, kept their bond strong. They understood that admiration alone was not enough. Respect, trust, and understanding were equally important. Their love, quiet but steadfast, grew in the spaces between experiments, workshops, and diplomatic events. One day, while sitting in the exhibition garden where they had first shared quiet conversations, Amir reflected on the journey they had taken. From a single glance that had left him breathless to the moment Leora had publicly acknowledged him as an equal, their journey had been remarkable. He realized that connection was not about titles, appearances, or societal approval. It was about courage, curiosity, and the willingness to see beyond differences. Leora looked at him and smiled. "You've changed things, Amir," she said softly. "Not just for us, but for everyone watching. You've shown that understanding and respect can create bridges where walls once stood." Amir felt a warmth in his chest, a mixture of pride and gratitude. He knew she was right. Together they had shown that collaboration and connection were possible, even across worlds. By the end of their story, Amir and Leora had created something far greater than a personal bond. They had inspired others, built bridges between humans and aliens, and proven that curiosity, respect, and courage could overcome fear and prejudice. Their partnership became a legend whispered in laboratories, schools, and councils across both worlds. A story of admiration, understanding, and the quiet bravery it takes to see someone as equal, no matter how different they may seem. As Amir looked at Leora one evening, he remembered the first time he had seen her and whispered, "So beautiful." That simple admiration had grown into something profound, something enduring. It was a testament to connection, to courage, and to the extraordinary possibilities that arise when hearts and minds meet without judgment. Their story was no longer just about a human and an alien princess. It was about the power of understanding, the magic of respect, and the limitless potential that exists when worlds choose to meet halfway.